Welcome to this week's Good Work Show, everybody. We're excited to be here.
Yay!
Yes, so it's a good day at the Good Work Show because we have a show that's talking about education and the environment all at the same time.
Yeah.
And education about the environment.
I agree.
Yes. So
I agree that is what we're doing.
Yes. So we are going to invite the executive director of the Ray C. Anderson Foundation, John Lanier, on the show. He's going to join us after the break. And it's an organization that until recently I didn't really know existed. In the foundation, Family Foundation, they just came off of a huge event down in Serenbe, where they invite thousands of people to come and learn about the environment. And I think when I got an email, it said eat a cricket and do it's really cool. Like I probably wouldn't have done that part, but but eat a cricket and learn about the environment.
Whole30?
I'm sure it is.
Can we just say
what
that
else
it's not?
Huh?
Because that would be my excuse.
Every
time
I'm
somebody
sure it
offered
is.
me
Why
a
would
cricket or a grub,
why would
I'm
it
on
be
Whole30.
dairy? And it would have been. I don't think it can be any of the stuff that you can't eat. So I'm sure it is.
Can you
I
say
don't think you have to go eat that was an option. Like for kids,
cricket
it's a
eating was
family
an option.
event.
They're probably like chocolate covered though.
I'm sure it is. I've seen chocolate covered ants and just different stuff.
Yeah.
They have that. And they had one time on the Food Network recently. Yeah, shout out to the Food Network because I watch a lot of Food Network. And it was on the Halloween Baking Challenge. They had, maybe it was on Chopped. Anyway, they had maggot cupcakes. Now, I missed the first few minutes of the show.
Were they decorated as such?
Yes.
Okay, decorated to appear to be, but not including.
The part about it is I missed the first few minutes of the show, so I wasn't sure if that was for real
edible.
Maggots.
I'm sure
they
that's
weren't
not.
alive. I mean, they weren't moving. Now, it looked like maggots.
Can somebody do some research on this?
Yes,
because I need to know.
And it was for Halloween. That's exactly what it looked like.
But that's just decorated to appear that way.
So. One would
Sorry,
hope.
so we're looking at a screen because we're
maggots on the cupcake. That's exactly what it looked like on Food Network.
That looks like it could be Rice Krispies.
I'm sure it could. I'm telling you, yes.
Or rice, like puffed rice or something. That's what we're going to.
It probably could be.
We're going to say.
But I've seen them have bugs. They had a spider on the tarantula one time in the basket on Chopped.
And what did you do with that?
They cooked it.
Speaking of tarantulas.
They cooked it and put it in the meal.
Have you seen the news about the tarantula mating swarm on the West Coast?
Mm-mm. Oh, wait.
Do not Google it.
Wait.
Don't
you mean
Google
the
it.
one they had something in Las Vegas.
I'm not looking in this direction. Those were the...
What was the thing that something is invading
Those
Vegas?
were crickets.
That's what
crickets.
That is so just. I saw a picture of somebody who was actually there. Oh no.
So can I tell you? So the first summer I moved to DC when I lived in Washington D.C.
They had those what's the name?
The cicadas.
Yeah,
and
those are the ugliest bugs ever.
They're horrible, and it was the converge. So they have the 7-year swarm and the 13-year swarm.
I would move from DC
and
that day.
I did not know this was a thing, and apparently that
People
year
don't tell you
the 17 and the 13-year swarm converged.
Mm-mm.
So all of the cicadas came to life at the same time.
That's
and
a plague. It's a plague.
It looked like it was a plague,
It
and
is.
it was, as a person like I am who's kind of phobic of bugs in general, it was horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like 2 weeks, and it was horrifying. Part of the reason I left DC, one, is I was tired of the winters.
Yeah,
but
the cicadas.
it was coming up on the 7 years, and I was like, it's time for me to go because I will not do this again.
But don't they get in everything? Like they drop on your head and stuff.
They fly.
Okay.
First of all, they're giant flying things.
And those things are big,
they're huge.
like your cell phone.
They're
big.
huge. They're like the size of my hand. They're huge.
Yeah.
They fly. So the good news is at the time, so they live in the ground for however long and then they appear.
Mm-hmm.
So the best part of urban renewal projects, I guess, not environmental, but whatever, is that it disturbs the ground.
Yeah.
So that if you're in an area that has like new construction or whatever, they're not so bad.
Right.
But if you lived in some of those, oh my gosh, with the pictures. If you live someplace,
is that chocolate covered cicadas?
Where
what is that?
I'm not even going to look in that direction. But if you live someplace where they've got older homes or they haven't done anything in the last 7 years or so, all of the things that are under the ground are just waiting to appear, and then they do, and it's horrifying. So,
nope. They should tell people that when they move to DC. Well, you're about 3 years
but
off,
there's a
'cause
lot
then you
of
can
places.
plan your life
Oh, because
around
it's
it.
only like 2 weeks. I would have left town. Like if I
Yeah.
had known, I would have left town and like not.
They need to. It should be on the calendar.
It should cicada.
Yeah, like so.
coming.
So, and when you book a
the
ticket
thing
and a
about
flight to DC, it should
they
be
should
like
tell you.
warning, like how
Right.
they tell you the warning that the airport is going to be backed up.
Yeah,
It should be
they
like
should.
a warning. You're going into cicada
But
zone.
but like the doomsday warnings up to when they first were coming was
Yeah.
like, so this is the year they're coming, and then like when the first one popped up, it's here, and then it just builds. So the whole thing is they're stupid. So they come out of the ground, they mate, and they die. That's all they have. Like
So you have all the dead carcasses on the ground.
because they only have like a couple day lifespan. So they literally pop up, find a partner, and die. That's all they do.
But what about the ones in Georgia? Why do you hear them all? Because
I think that's a different strand of because I don't ever really see those.
I saw one time. It was dead.
I saw
on the
a dead
ground.
one,
Yeah.
yes, but you don't really see those. But these, and I can't. I figure everything in life has a purpose.
We need to have a bug expert. Didn't we have a bug person?
We
on
do
the
not
show?
have because those people like to bring their stupid bugs with them.
No. We're not doing that part. I just
Okay.
want to know what's up with the Georgia ones. Why don't they do the same as
I don't
in DC?
know. But I don't know. But like my thing is I figure every animal and thing has a purpose. But what my thing is, these things live underground for 7 or 13 years. Their whole purpose is to pop out of the ground, be a menace, mate, and die. And then stay there for another 7 or 13 years and do the same. And I'm like, I don't understand the purpose of this particular.
Oh, wait a minute. But if they both die, how are they? How are they?
I guess they lay an egg and then they die. I don't know.
Oh, see,
So they-
that's what I'm saying. We need to have that.
they
Because
lay-
if you
but-
just go out and mate, then they all should be dead at this point.
But something gets fertilized and it gets
Okay, well,
whatever.
we gotta-
But my thing is,
No.
So the saddest part of the whole cicada story
Sad.
is
That
when
sounds great to me.
it is. But so if the whole purpose of your life is to be in the ground and then pop up and mate and die, so my friend and I we were out someplace and there was one cicada, just one. He was flying and it was sad. And he was just flying around and I was like.
Well, maybe he survived though. That might have actually been.
No.
You should have been sad for him because
That was the one.
he
I was like,
survived
could
it.
you imagine if you were like the cicada that was like late to the party? Like you've waited 13 years.
No, he survived. I'm
and
telling
you
you,
were
that was
late.
the one that was strong. See, that's how they evolve. That's how bugs evolve. That's.
So you're.
I'm sorry, everybody on camera did not hear that. But... Okay, back on the
Oh, my
Racy Anderson
goodness.
Foundation and Ray Day. The cricket was one thing, but they do have like a monarch thing now. Butterflies, I will do all day long. I don't consider
like
those
butterflies.
I do not.
I
Like,
remember when I was
love
little,
butterflies.
have you been to Butterfly World in Florida?
No, but I've seen it on the road, and I've been wanting to go to like for
First
a
of
long
all,
time.
it's like you go into this big bubble.
Yes,
And there's just
that's
butterflies everywhere.
They have
but
that
there's
a lot of
too-
places. I've been.
But there's too many.
No, that's what they're supposed to be. It's great.
There's too many
It's
of
fantastic.
them. And they have no respect for personal boundaries.
I love it. Set me in there. I'll just live in there. Okay. Anyway, after John comes on the show, we are going to talk to George Thomas, who is the founder of EEOG, Education Equality Opportunity Group, and talk to him about the work that he's doing to provide students the opportunity to see their own future in a positive way,
Yeah.
and to connect with professionals who they might not otherwise connect with, but to give them an opportunity to see what people are doing outside of their everyday lives and meet some professionals. So it should be pretty cool. We talked a lot about environmentalism, but it should be a great show with the two of those things together, kind of balancing. Though we do have a lot of education related groups on the show, but we don't have that many environmental ones. I mean,
Yeah.
every once in a while we do. But this should be pretty cool to hear what John is going to say when he gets on the show.
Yeah, and because they're not just talking about, we've had groups on talking about, we had the composting folks and we've had, stuff like that, the OMG kids, and stuff like that. But they're looking at the environment from like really, truly cutting edge, innovative stuff. So kind of beyond what we may do personally to say like, okay, I'm going to recycle, I'm going to compost, I'm going to try to live zero waste, I'm going to take public transportation, that kind of stuff. Like they're really looking at, it is the 21st century, right? So yeah. So now they're looking at like 22nd century kind of solutions to problems. It used to be that you're looking for a 21st century and that was like a big deal, but now we're kind of in it.
How do you, well, I need to ask an expert. How do you live zero waste?
So there's like there's this woman,
you know,
there was a story I just saw recently about this lady, and she was able to put all of her trash, like stuff that she had to legit throw away, in a
not compostable stuff.
No, trash, like the stuff that she could not find another, in a mason jar for 3 years worth.
One mason jar.
3 years worth of waste went into one.
I feel like
jar.
That is a story that people need to hear because I'm not sure I could figure that out.
I was like, I don't know. I didn't read the story. I saw the headline. It was interesting to me. But, you know, they talk about things like there's a lot of stores I've seen, like they're talking about in New York where you bring your own vessels. So, like if you go to get dry goods, you bring your own vessels to do that stuff so that you're not creating waste products. Of course, bringing your own disposable bags, but or non-disposable bags, but ways that you can look for things that you have in your home that don't create, either they can be composted, they can be reused, they can be recycled. So I think that's kind of that. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think about like, could I be zero waste?
That's what I'm saying. I don't see how it's possible, but I'm sure. I mean, she put the stuff in the can.
Because like, where do you get shampoo?
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of questions I have about this. We need to have some experts on to school us about that. And why the cicadas don't come. I don't really want to know why they don't come out. I just want to know that they don't. And here's the reason why, so we can keep that reason alive.
Forever. Okay.
In Georgia. But anyway, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and hear from John Lanier of the Racy Anderson Foundation. You're listening to The Good Work Show.
To learn more about the show and how your company can tell their story, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @GoodWorkShow.
Audience, welcome back to the show. We are here with John Lanier, who is the Executive Director of the Racy Anderson Foundation. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us about the foundation and your mission.
We are a family foundation. So to answer that, I have to first say a little bit about who Ray Anderson was.
Yeah.
Ray was the founder and longtime CEO of Interface. Interface is the world's largest carpet tile manufacturing company. And he was committed to environmental sustainability late in his life. So when he passed away in 2011, he left his estate to this family foundation. He was my grandfather. And along with my 4 trustees, my mom, dad, aunt, and uncle, we worked to advance my grandfather's legacy and support others with the assets that he left to this foundation.
Cool.
That's fantastic.
You answered all the questions.
Yeah.
In that one. Kidding. Because we were like, well, are you related? Who? My next question was, who was Ray Anderson? So that,
I can tell you so much more about him.
Let's
do it.
Actually, yeah, let's do that. Let's give it a little flavor because, we hear so much, especially this day and age. There's, we talk about the idea of folks amassing wealth and then what do people do with it? And then we've got a lot of folks that have the whole commitment to, well, I'm not going to leave money to my family or I'm going to, we're going to give it away. And there's a lot of folks that are doing that. So let's talk a little bit about who he was. And because that's a remarkable thing to say, well, here's everything that I've built and grown as I worked and lived and did what I loved. And now I want to pay it forward after I'm gone. So,
yeah, we think it was a tremendous gift that he left to his family that we get to give to others in his name. And there's responsibility that comes along with that in 2 respects. One is the responsibility to be good stewards of these assets, but beyond that, we have to be good stewards of the legacy because Ray Anderson was so much more than just an industrialist. He was truly an environmental pioneer. He founded Interface in 1973. He took it public in 1983 and spent the first 60 years of his life never really giving a single thought to the environment. But here in 1994, when he's 60 years old, he reads a book. And that book was called The Ecology of Commerce, written by a gentleman named Paul Hawken. And the book said that business and industry is the sector responsible for the greatest amount of environmental harm. But it's also the only sector large enough, well enough, organized, and capitalized to do something about it, to lead humanity out of the environmental challenges that we have. So from that moment on, in 1994, after reading this book, he was convicted. He said he was convicted as a plunderer of the earth, and that he spent the rest of his life, 17 years, trying to make his company, this publicly traded global industrial manufacturing company, as environmentally sustainable as possible. And along the way, he and the people of Interface proved that you could make a profit and do right by the planet. In fact, you could make a better, bigger profit when sustainability is done right. So we feel as a family that that is the responsibility that's perhaps the most significant, is to continue to inspire others with his story of true commitment to planet Earth.
Yeah, wow.
That's glad I asked the question.
I know. Yeah, such a rich history in that.
And the power of a good book.
Yes.
I mean, think about just the idea that, reading a book, how that changed the entire trajectory of what he decided to do with his life, how it impacted the environment, his business, and then all the people now that you guys get to work with as a part of the foundation. So tell us that title again.
That book was called The Ecology of Commerce, and it's now in a second edition written by Paul Hawken.
Cool.
Fantastic. So, as a foundation, much of your work is about funding other projects and initiatives and giving back in that way. But you also have a big educational component to what you do. So, and inspiring the next generation of leaders. So obviously you're the next generation for the family, but even beyond, kind of allowing the family to be able to give back, you're inspiring other young leaders. And really, when you think about sustainability, it's all about future generations anyway. I mean, of course, It's about healing the planet for today, but obviously the effects on it are going to be long-term. So tell us about your educational components and how you're working to accomplish that.
We have found higher education in particular to be outstanding partners in trying to create the change that Ray stood for, that we believe in. So we've been pleased to partner in particular with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is where my grandfather went to school. He graduated with an industrial engineering degree in 1956. My earliest memories of my grandfather were going to Georgia Tech football and basketball games with him. So here today, we are pleased to have funded, in particular, a center in their business school, and it's called the Ray C. Anderson Center for Sustainable Business. And in short, it's our belief that that's the right place for the Ray Andersons of tomorrow to be educated. People who understand that business and the environment should be complementary, that when done right, business can truly be a force for good in this world. And I see these young people who are exposed to the ideas that I think the next generation truly needs at this young age. It makes me think, wow, what if Ray Anderson had his epiphany not when he was 60, but when he was 20 years old? And that would have been such a tremendous opportunity for him. And we hope that partnering with Georgia Tech and with other universities, Emory and the University of Georgia have been good partners as well. We find that to be extremely rewarding. And if I may take it one step further, I spoke about how important that legacy piece is for us. And that eye towards the next generation, I think, is captured perfectly in the poem that my grandfather would recite at the end of every speech that he gave. In the mid-2000s, he was giving hundreds of speeches a year around the world about his work. But the poem was written by one of his employees in 1996, written for him because this employee was inspired by my grandfather's newfound commitment to the environment. So if I may,
you should go right on ahead.
The poem is called Tomorrow's Child, and it goes, "Without a name, an unseen face, and knowing not your time or place, tomorrow's child, though yet unborn, I met you first last Tuesday morn. A wise friend introduced us to, and through his shining point of view, I saw a day that you would see, a day for you, but not for me. Knowing you has changed my thinking, for I never had an inkling that the things that I do might someday somehow threaten you. Tomorrow's child, my daughter's son, I'm afraid I've just begun to think of you and of your good, though always having known I should. Begin I will to weigh the cost of what I squander, what is lost, if ever I forget that you will someday come and live here too. Now, to me, that is the perfect capturing of the importance of the next generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, there's so much focus right now, rightfully so, on the environment, on what's happening with climate change. And so many of the discussions are around this idea that we're here doing whatever we're doing to the planet, but not taking into consideration the fact that we won't probably be here to see we're seeing some of them, but,
Yes,
the real, catastrophic, truly global catastrophic effects of what's happening and how irresponsible it is, and why it is going to be the younger generation that's going to stand up and say, hey, but we're going to be here and we have to deal with this.
Absolutely.
So tell us, you're talking about the work that you guys are doing at Georgia Tech and that kind of stuff. And I'm just being nosy and interested because I'm interested to see what are people coming up with? Like what changes did your grandfather make in his business that said, okay, we used to do it this way, but now we're going to do it this way. So give us a little bit of flavor of what that change was.
So for the business, they've come so far. And the credit sure goes to my grandfather, but also to the people of Interface, because the first thing that happened in this journey along this pathway of sustainability was to change the culture at Interface and get buy-in from the thousands of people working for this company around the globe. So when they began to pursue sustainability, which for the company, for my grandfather, was a very high bar, it meant that Interface would have to run its business doing no harm to the environment. It's not just less bad, it's no harm.
Wow.
That's the right definition of sustainability. And beyond that would be a restorative enterprise. What if Interface could leave the world healthier and more socially just because of the way it operated? So as they set their sights on that very high bar, they began to realize that the important innovations were going to come not necessarily in the C-suite when the CFO was talking to the CEO. It would be when the factory worker saw something and realized, oh, this could be better. So an example of something that they did was they revolutionized the way in which they would dye their carpet. In fact, they stopped dyeing their carpet, which is a very water-intensive process.
Yes.
And instead did something called tufting. I won't go into the details, but the idea is they completely changed how they made patterns on their carpet and reduced their water usage by a tremendous amount. And today, their water intensity of their product is down 91% compared to what it was on their baseline.
Great.
Similarly,
That's incredible.
you look at things like waste to landfill, down also 91%. When you look at renewable energy as one of the important components, they want to get to 100% renewable energy. They're at 88% now. They're at 100% for electricity, but when you make carpet, you need heat, and electricity doesn't provide that to you. Normally, you burn natural gas, but they are at 79% renewable on their thermal energy as well. So they've seen these breakthroughs, and they've been incremental, for sure, along the way, but they have all along the way been there because the people of Interface know that this is the reason why they exist. They don't exist to make money. They make money to exist, to pursue this higher purpose, which is to teach the industrial world how it can be in harmony with our natural systems.
Wow.
Cool.
Well, John, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back, talk a little bit more about the work that the organization is doing to support other organizations and initiatives, and then maybe get into some of the other things that people can plug in and support what you're doing. So can you hang with us, take a break?
Absolutely.
You're listening to The Good Work Show.
To learn more about the show and how your company can tell their story, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @GoodWorkShow.
Audience, welcome back to The Good Work Show. We are sitting here chatting with John Lanier, who is the executive director of the Ray C. Anderson Foundation, named after his grandfather, a family foundation that is really doing some phenomenal work in transforming our environment through the fact that they are inspiring others, the next generation and this generation, to make a positive impact on the environment and not a negative one. And we talked a lot in the first segment about your grandfather. and then you recited the poem that sort of told the story about, which is recited beautifully, by the way.
Thanks.
And you know what? Actually, we didn't ask. Do you remember the employee who wrote that poem?
Yeah. Glenn Thomas is his name, and he's still a friend of this family. We appreciate not only that he wrote that poem, but that he has lived the values himself that Ray Anderson stood for.
That's fantastic. So definitely want to give a shout out to his family and him and just for doing that. But we talked about Georgia Tech and the program there and the Ray C. Anderson program there, where you can get young folks and early on to start thinking about the environment and thinking how business affects the environment and how they can actually positively affect the environment.
And I think that's the biggest key. So it's not just about, I recycle or I, personally, you're biting your tongue there.
No. Say more. You are so right. This is really important.
But it's also the idea that in the larger scale that businesses have a place in this cycle.
They have a responsibility.
They have a responsibility that it's up to them. And I like what you said before, that it's not just about making money. It's not just about even doing no harm. It's the next step of being restorative. How can we leave it better than we found it? And taking it beyond the individual and the personal to, everybody's responsibility, no matter where you fit in, whether it's personal or business or government or whatever. It's everybody has a part to play.
Yeah. I was excited when I promise you I was. This is the opportunity that we all together face when it comes to the environment. It all comes down to people. It really does. We look at the scope of the challenges that we're facing now, and they are more dire than they were in 1994 when my grandfather had his epiphany, whether it's the climate crisis that we're facing, and we understand what that will do in the coming 80 years, the rest of this century, whether it's the fact that we're harming ecosystems around the world, biodiversity is out of control. I can go down the list rattling off statistics that will make you feel sad and depressed about where we are with the environment. But it goes so much beyond just saying, can we avert catastrophe? Can we stop these bad things? That restorative piece, getting beyond just like, recycling because I'm supposed to. We have a fundamental opportunity to leave a better world and a more just society to that next generation. And I think it is a binary option. Either the challenges that we face, which are severe, will cause society to take steps back and real people will suffer as a result. Or we can evolve the way that we live on planet Earth with planet Earth in a way where energy of the future is so affordable that everyone has access to it. Food systems are localized and generate more positive human health outcomes, where our communities are healthier, more vibrant, and more intertwined because of the way that they're designed. We can see solving our environmental problems yields so many cascading benefits beyond which we can only begin to imagine at this point. That's the opportunity to do so much more good, not just stop the bad.
Yeah.
That's
that's
so
great.
Let's do better.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And let's just do better.
Yeah. So one of the ways you're doing better, though, is it's a foundation. So you are giving opportunity to give funding, or you are giving funding, but giving opportunity for others to do exactly that. So tell us about your grants. They're called Gray Notes, and there's a story behind why they're called that. But tell us about the Gray Notes and the significance of why they're called that. But who have you given them to,
Sure.
and what type of organization or initiative would be right for a Gray Note?
So we call them Gray Notes grants because when my grandfather was still alive working at his company, he was always curious and always challenging his people to solve the next problem, to think about things differently. He had these gray notepads, pieces of paper that he would scribble down a thought on, a question, and then he'd find the right person to go get an answer for him. And so people actually lived in fear of these because it took him 30 seconds to write it and he'd give it to somebody. It could be months of work when they got one of these Gray Notes. So we want to embody that, this idea of asking somebody to go and find an elegant solution to something. What would be the better way? And we give our grants in this way. The Gray Notes grants are our bigger scale, long-term commitments oriented around a specific project or idea, as opposed to general operating grants, which we're pleased to do at a smaller level for quite a few nonprofit partners. So a couple examples of our longest running partnerships. One is with an organization called the Biomimicry Institute. So biomimicry, it's a design discipline. Maybe some of your listeners have heard the term, but it is fundamentally oriented around asking this question: how would nature do blank? Nature's been around for a really long time, engineering itself, solving problems. How would nature capture water? How would nature store carbon? How would nature, in the case of Interface, how would nature design a floor covering? That's something that they ask themselves. And when you turn to nature and its wisdom, oftentimes you find more elegant solutions. An example of a biomimetic product is Velcro. The guy who invented that a long time ago was walking in the woods with his dog and was picking burrs out of his dog's fur and said, how does that stick to my dog? Put it under a microscope, and they saw the hook of the burr, the loop of the dog's fur, Velcro. So that's just one example of what's
incredible.
possible.
Yeah.
Right. So we fund this institute, which wants to push biomimicry out into society, make it a go-to design discipline, not just a niche thing, but the normal way that we design. And they run a program for aspiring entrepreneurs to come up with their best nature-inspired ideas and then build a business case, build a prototype for how their idea can work. And we give a grand prize to the best team within this program to hopefully spur them on in their process as young entrepreneurs. So from the very beginning, these people, yes, they look to the world of business, but they have nature at their core. That's how they honor Ray Anderson. Another example of a Gray Note grant is to a nonprofit that we actually spun out called The Ray. The Ray is the nickname we've given to a stretch of interstate here in Georgia that's named for my grandfather. In West Georgia on Interstate 85, exit 1 to 18, that's the Ray C. Anderson Memorial Highway. But it was my aunt, trustee of the foundation and president of this organization we spun out. Her name's Harriet Langford, Ray's youngest daughter. She's the one who said, we just put the greenest industrialist name on a dirty highway. I don't think Daddy would like this. So their work is to take this 18 miles of interstate and turn it into a living laboratory of the solutions that would make our highways sustainable, if not regenerative themselves. And that is everything from, can our highway generate renewable electricity, filter stormwater, be made of more renewable can it be made of more renewable materials? Can it be at the intersection of cutting-edge technologies like autonomous vehicles and connected vehicles that are fundamentally changing the way we move ourselves and our stuff around the planet? And it's really cool to see here in Georgia this living laboratory that already has drive-on solar panels, that already has solar that charges electric vehicles, that already has
So as you're
bioswales.
driving it, it charges your car.
No, well, that's down the road.
Okay. I'm like, 'cause that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be
That is
fantastic.
being piloted. So it's
Okay,
called
cool.
Dynamic Wireless Electric Vehicle Charging, and it's currently
Nice.
being piloted
Now, see, then I'd buy
in
a-
Utah and the United Kingdom.
But you have to go up.
Yeah.
But if
roll
all
on
the
it.
highways were like that, and
then you could keep going.
you could keep going, you don't
Yeah.
have to worry my inherent fear of not finding a place to plug in my car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully one day that technology will be on the Ray.
Cool.
It's on their radar for sure.
That's fantastic. Really innovative. I mean, that's some innovative thinking because when you think about environmental challenges, one of the first ones that comes to me is everybody's in their car. This is Atlanta, and there are so many negative impacts that come with that. But you're talking about interstate, where, and especially a busy strip like that, where you have opportunity, and there's so much of it in cities and in areas like ours that are metropolitan. There's so much of it to be able to transform it into something else that's positive and useful and helpful, and that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We're proud of that one.
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So we've got about a couple minutes left. You've got opportunities for people to get involved. Tell us about that. How can people support the work that you're doing? Cheer you on, volunteer, whatever the case may be.
Well, what I'll say to that is, first and foremost, what I would ask of people is to look at how they live their lives, whether it's in their home or in their workplace, and ask the question, how can I be a better steward of planet Earth here? And I don't want to ask everybody to do everything. That's not realistic. But I ask everyone to look at their own lives and say, what can I do? And do one thing. And then do one more. That is the most important part of this. And it will be one more small step along the way towards advancing sustainability, truly at social scales. We need that. And that's where change starts. Beyond that, I would say for folks, in particular in the Atlanta area, there are some tremendous organizations who are doing tremendous work on so many environmental issues, whether it's the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper working to protect our local water source, or it's South Face showing what's possible for the built environment and supporting other nonprofits through their various programs, and so many more. There are great organizations, and your support of those organizations, whether financially or through your time, is very much appreciated. And I suppose my last request for the foundation in particular and how folks can help, would love for you to visit our website. Go to the Ray C. Anderson Foundation.org website. And we ask you also if you might be interested in learning more about Ray and what we care about here. We republished a book. Ray Anderson wrote 2 of them. The first one was called Mid-Course Correction, and it's 20 years old. Well, we republished it. I wrote 6 new chapters added to it, and that came out earlier this year. And I think it's one of the more important books out there about the intersection of business and the environment, and I would be personally honored if anybody would pick up a copy and give it a read.
All right. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, John, and the work that you're doing and continuing your grandfather's legacy. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're listening to The Good Work Show.
To learn more about the show and how your company can tell their story, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @GoodWorkShow.
Audience, welcome back to The Good Work Show. We are on the line with George Thomas, and he is the founder and executive director of Education Equal Opportunity Group. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much, and I appreciate the Good Work Show for acknowledging our service in Atlanta, Georgia, and the surrounding areas.
Absolutely. So why don't you start there and tell us a little bit about the organization, your mission, and what you do?
So for nearly 20 years, the core focus of the EOG has been grounding and investing in students, creating meaningful learning experiences, and providing positive pathways to success. The EOG's mission is to prepare low-income and first-generation high school students to become college and career readiness.
That's great. So talk to us a little bit about what led you to create the organization. Since you're the founder, you are sitting around one day and observing some issues in your local community, and you determined that you needed to start an organization. So tell us a little bit about those early days. What maybe brought this to your attention, and why you decided to start the organization, and then how you actually got started.
So, excellent question. As a graduate, as a college graduate, I felt personally I was being outpaced by my own standards, by my peers. And I graduated college in '96, I believe, and I think I was making a decent salary, about $60,000 a year. But I just felt that better was possible, but I didn't know how to actually access better. And so my goal was to understand what other people did that allegedly live better lifestyles or had more accessories, and I just didn't know because we have the same amount of hours in each day. And so I started reaching out to affluent individuals in Nashville, and I just asked the question, like, what are you doing to afford this lifestyle? What are you doing to have this wealth? And surprisingly to me, I got a lot of yeses, and those yeses turned into how can we enhance and expose other young people to different experiences and different networks that can actually change some of the trajectories that people face. And That's how I really got started. Meeting with successful people, asking them would they share their story, and we started with seminars that led to leadership conferences, and now it's all about accelerating the interaction between high school students from the public and private sector, from the public school sector, to successful entrepreneurs from the public and private sector, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So tell me what your students are about the experience when they are meeting with these professionals, or they see or realize, wow, they have a story too. What kind of feedback are you getting from the students, and what are they telling you, and what are you observing during those interactions?
So it's our own mantra, it's hard to be what you cannot see. And so typically, I feel people live in silos. If you only see people in your neighborhood or in your community, that's what you tend to emulate, because you know the person, that what they do for a living, and you can kind of gauge the kind of lifestyle that they have. But sometimes you have to be and go beyond just what you see. And so student feedback has been paramount in our continued growth. And young people who've never thought about being lobbyists at the local level or the state level or the federal level have been exposed to lobbyists. The same thing with specialties, business analysts for the news stations, senior executives or executive vice presidents for the Atlanta Falcons. So it's all about making sure that you can humanize the brand and understanding where your talents actually makes sense for you to be a part of that brand. So you know Mercedes-Benz, you know the Atlanta Falcons, you know Cracker Barrel, you know Publix, but you don't know what your talent is that can catapult you to be a part of those teams and be the contributor to those awesome brands that collaborate with us to impact the lives or improve the lives of students, if that makes sense.
That sounds great. So one of the things that you definitely have on your website is a bunch of different programs. So let's dig into some of those and share with our listeners a little bit about what those programs are, and then we'll want to talk about how can we connect some students who may be listening or parents of some students to your services. So one of the things that I think is kind of interesting is your career speed networking program. So it sounds like you kind of talked about a little bit with the different corporations and stuff you just listed, but how does that actually work, and what are the students going to get out of that participating in that program?
So the Career Speed Networking is an initiative to actually expose students to alternatives from dropping out of school, underachieving their goals, and not being a productive citizen. And this is really a series of one-on-one mini meetings and a mock interview session designed to accelerate young people's interaction and development with top business leaders. And so what our takeaway is to broaden the students' careers perspectives, strengthen their communication skills and soft skills, at the same time offer efficient and effective tools to use inside and outside the classroom. Approximately 200 students will participate in our event that we will host at Clark Atlanta University on October 3rd from 9 to 1 p.m. And again, it's just getting past the comfort zone issues for young people. Young people have to have business cards. We have a service component. Each person has to bring 10 canned goods to feed the homeless in Atlanta. And so it's a service component, but also you being enriched as a young person, but you also enriching other strangers' lives that you don't even know. And so it's no cost for any student to participate in our program, but we raise that money from our corporate sponsors that underwrite and create the experience, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So, George, you've been at this for a little while. Tell us a success story, maybe a story of a student that, kind of came through one of your programs and has really not only just embraced what you were able to bring through EEOG, but really excelled in their career. Can you give us a sense of one of those success stories?
Absolutely. I want to highlight a young lady. Her name is Courtney Williams, and her parents are actually in Atlanta. Her mother's in Atlanta. And I met Courtney at Antioch High School. and Antioch High School is in Nashville. But she was a young person that has 4 siblings, and she really didn't become a kid, and then she earned a full presidential scholarship to go to UT Knoxville because she had other responsibilities that limited her from just growing up as a regular kid. And so she didn't just receive the scholarship from UT Knoxville. We had opportunity to engage the president at the time, President Simic, who was the interim president of UT, and she, at that time, did everything right. She had the grades, she had the GPA, she had the test scores, but she did not really understand that she was college bound. And so being involved at the ELG, being involved in my program, not only was she college bound, but she's not only graduated from UT with honors with a double major, she's now working on her PhD at Binghamton University. She's already received her master's. And this past summer, she taught a course on anthropology in Peru. And so this is a young lady who really exceeded against the odds, but she's still looking to do even better things. And that's one person that I admire for her stick-to-itiveness, her tenacity, and her overall, relentless pursuit to know that if better is possible, then good is not enough attitude.
That's fantastic.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So after hearing that story, I'm sure there's people out there that want to support the work that you're doing. So tell us a little bit. We have about a minute and a half or so left. On how our listeners can support your efforts. Are there volunteer opportunities? Do you have any fundraisers coming up? How can people help to maximize the success that you guys are having with your organization?
So individuals can actually invest and make a financial investment on our website at eeog.org. Again, that's eeog.org. And just so you know, we started with 160 students in 2001. We've surpassed over 20,000 students. 15,000 have actually enrolled in 4 universities across the country, and we have about 7,000 graduates. And that's directly related to being able to pair and create these unlikely pairings between high school students and business leaders that can point out different pathways that young people don't consider because of lack of exposure. They can reach me direct by email at gthomas@eeog.org, or again, they can call 615-876-0215, and then anybody can make a donation or invest at eeog.org. Our hashtags are all the same, or Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or EEOG.org. And so we look forward to uplifting and encouraging high school students to dream the best dream possible for their lives.
Well, George, it's been a pleasure to have you on the Good Work Show. Everybody, make sure you check out their website, eeog.org, if you would like more information about the organization. Of course, you can find them on social media, as George just alluded to. And we just appreciate all the work that you're doing, George. Thank you for your time. And thank you for coming on the Good Work Show and exposing so many students over the years. That's a large number, and you hit it right on the head when you said that they can't imagine what they can be unless they can see it. So kudos to you and the team, and thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so very much, and you all have a great rest of the day.
You too. You're listening to the Good Work Show.